guys, it's Mena. Welcome back to my channel. Ignore that, that was my phone. Hi guys, it's Mena. Welcome back to my channel. Or if this is the very first video you're seeing of me, then welcome to my channel. Please hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. I post Monday through Saturday. In today's video, I'm going to do my top 10 knitting methods that I never use. And I actually made this video like twice before, but it didn't turn out right, so I'm going to get started. And here are some methods in knitting that I personally don't use for a certain reason. I find them confusing, or I just don't really use them like a lot of people do. And I know a lot of you guys here probably love these methods if you knit. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these are bad methods. I just personally never use them for certain reasons. If you guys like them and you use them a lot and they're your favorite, that's great. I personally just don't use them for certain reasons, and I'm going to try my best to explain why. Right, and I'm going to get started. So number one on my list would have to be the long tail cast on. The reason I never use the long tail cast on is because I find it super confusing and makes me think I've already knitted a row, because when you do the long tail cast on, I apologize, I cannot talk today. You have to use 2 strands of yarn in order to do this cast on, because you have one for the bottom and one for like wrapping around your needle. And then you got to pick up from both your thumb and index finger, and then you just keep doing it until you've cast on the amount of stitches. And the reason I find it super confusing, because there's a tail in the front of the row, and it makes me think I've already knitted a row, and that's why I never use it, because I find it super confusing and think I've already knitted a row due to the way that the cast on looks. And don't get me wrong, if you guys, this is your holy grail cast on and you love it, that's completely fine. I just don't use it because I find it confusing. Number 2 on my list had to be magic loop method. The reason I never use the magic loop method for knitting is because I find it super uncomfortable, because you have to squeeze divide a certain amount of small stitches between your cable and your needles, and I'm just like super uncomfortable with it because I worry about breaking my cord and stuff, because even though the cords are pretty strong, it just makes me uncomfortable and makes me worry about breaking my cord. So that's why I never use that method. And I just prefer using double pointed needles above all, because I find them super easy to work with. And if you guys are comfortable with the magic loop method, that's fine. I personally don't have the hang of it yet. Once I practice a little more, maybe I'll get better. Maybe I'll do a video on the magic loop method if you guys want, once I practice more and get the hang of it. Number 3 on my list had to be the cable cast on. The reason I never use the cable cast on is because mine's always too tight whenever I do it. And I do have a video of how to do the cable cast on. If you guys wish to see that, I will link it down below. I don't really like the tutorial, but if you guys like to use the cable cast on and you think it's fun, that's totally fine. I personally don't like it due to the fact I find it too tight, and also another reason is because my stitches slip off whenever I do it, and it's really hard, and I really find it super hard, and it's a pain. And I like knitting cables, but I never like the cable cast on because I find it super hard to work with. Number 4 on my list had to be Lifeline. The reason I never use Lifeline is because I forget to use it, honestly. And even though it's a really easy technique, I just never use it because I forget to use it. And I just usually unravel, because I know where to unravel and not worry about my stitches and stuff like that. I usually unravel to my, to my row that I messed up on, and then I'll put my needle back in right away. And sometimes I'll leave my needle in and I'll rip back to the row that I messed up on. And I'll rip back. Ripping back is when you have 2 knitting needles, and then you knit. And then you put one knitting needle through the stitch you worked, and then you pull your new stitch out. So that's how you rip back. So I just usually rip back. I just never use the Lifeline, because like I mostly know where to go if I mess up my stitches. but maybe I'll try a lifeline. If you guys tried a lifeline line and you knit, let me know how it works. Let me know how you like it down below, because maybe I'll give it a try. Number 5 on my list, not to be weaving ends with the tapestry needle unless I'm sewing. So the reason I never weave in my ends in with the tapestry needle is I never cut them short enough. I mean, never cut them long enough, and I think it's just much easier to do it with a crochet hook because that's the way I was taught how to weave in my ends, and I'm like completely stuck with it. And I never usually use a tapestry needle for weaving my ends unless I need to sew my piece together, which kind of makes a lot of sense for me. Where I usually just weave in my ends if I'm crocheting, because I just find it easier to weave in my ends with the tapestry needle and crocheting because my stitches are too small. That's just my own personal opinion. If you guys like using a crochet hook for crocheting to weave in your ends, that's totally fine. I just think it's easier to just do it with a tapestry needle. And a crochet hook, it just makes it just as easy because I just don't cut my ends long enough. Number 6 on my list would have to be English method unless I'm stranding colors. So I never use never use the English method unless I'm stranding colors. So if you guys saw some of my knitting videos, you know I do use the English method, and you're probably thinking, then why are you saying that? I just personally never use it in real life when I'm actually knitting. I only did that to show you guys how to hold your yarn in the videos, but I never use it because to me it personally takes forever. But if you guys find it quicker, that's totally fine, and it makes it easier for you. I personally find it easier to do the continental method, which is holding the yarn in my left hand right here, or this is also known as the German or European method, because I just think it's easier and it's much quicker in my opinion, because like it just like helps me so much in knitting. And fun fact, I learned how to crochet before I learned how to knit, so I got so used to holding the yarn in my left hand, because when you crochet you're supposed to hold the yarn in your left hand. And so basically that's basically sometimes if you learn how to crochet before you learn how to knit, you are so used to holding the yarn in your left hand rather than your right. As opposed to what you're supposed to do in knitting. When you first learn, I don't know, I think it depends on your comfort zone and what you're used to and stuff. And the reason I only use the English method for stranding colors is because I find I don't hold my yarn as tight as opposed to the continental method. I do hold my yarn tight, but I don't hold it so tight that I can't let it glide through. I just hold it kind of tight when I'm knitting the continental method, because like I still have it comfortable enough between my fingers and stuff like that. I just I still have it comfortable between my fingers and stuff like that, and it's able to glide through when I'm knitting. But if I'm doing stranding colors, I think I just pull it a little bit too tight when I'm not paying attention, so I find it just super easy to... Please ignore that was my phone. Let me take care of something really quick. Sorry, I had to send a text back. Anyway, sorry, where was I? So I find it just much easier when I'm knitting, when I'm stranding colors. I think it's easier to hold the yarn in my right hand opposed to my left, because I find I don't hold it as tight. Number 7 on my list, I have to be using my hands to make pom-poms. So basically I used to use my hands to make pom-poms. I don't do this anymore because my pom-poms turned out so horrible that they would just fall apart and looked really, really terrible. Like I did a terrible job on them and I rushed through them and they looked really bad. But I used to use my hands, and I know a lot of people use their hands when they make pom-poms because they don't have a pom-pom maker, but after I got this for my birthday, I find it so much easier to make pom-poms because like my pom-poms turn out so perfect every time, and I love this thing so much. It makes it so fun to make pom-poms, and it makes it super easy for me and stuff like that. And you guys should check out this pom-pom maker. It's called the Boyer Pom-Pom Maker. maker. I got it for my birthday. A lot of you guys know that. If you haven't checked it out, you should check it out. It is a great pom-pom maker. I use it all the time when I make pom-poms. Now, and I love it. Love it. But if you don't have a pom-pom maker, you can just use your hands. I personally just like using a pom-pom maker now. Instead of using my hands to make pom-poms. Number 8 on my list would have to be using cardboard to make tassels. So I would never have a piece of cardboard lying around my house to make tassels. I would always have DVD cases. So I always used a DVD case whenever I needed to make a tassel. So I have a DVD somewhere. I'm gonna share. And so here's an example. Whenever I had to make a tassel, I never had like a tassel maker like I have right. Like I have right here. This is a tassel maker. If I can get it back in. Sorry. Yeah, so I would always use a DVD case because I never had a tassel maker, and it just made my tassels much easier to make for me because I would never have a piece of cardboard lying around like it did in the book. When I learned how to make a tassel, I just found it much easier than trying to look around my house for a piece of cardboard, and this just made it so much easier for me at the time. Number 9 on my list would have to be using yarn markers unless I need them. So basically, whenever I had to place markers for decreasing, I would make markers out of yarn because I didn't have stitch markers and stuff. So I would use stitch markers all the time to make for yarn markers for my decreasing and stuff, and my hats and stuff So I never had like actual stitch markers, so I had to make them out of yarn. Or sometimes, whoops, dropped my ring. Or sometimes, so mainly if I was knitting in the round, I would use the end of my ring for knitting in the round, so then I would know where to stop and stuff. But after I got like stitch markers, like actual stitch markers, I started using stitch markers to different colored stitch markers to actually do my decreasings in the round, so then I would know where to decrease and stuff like that. Because it made it just much easier for me, because so just so you guys know, here's a good tip. If you guys are knitting in the round and you need to decrease, use separate color stitch markers so then you know which marker to end on. Don't use the same exact marker due to the fact you might get confused on where to end your round. So that's what I feel comfortable is using stitch markers. But before I got stitch markers, I would make them out of yarn. So the yarn would, so I would just make them out of yarn and stuff so I wouldn't waste some of my yarn. And if I didn't have enough to knit an actual hat, I would just use the yarn for the actual stitch markers. So number 10 on my list had to be double pointed needles unless I'm knitting in the round or I need them for knitting in the round. So I find double pointed needles kind of hard to work with because due to the fact they kind of get in the way a lot. But at the same time, I kind of like knitting with double pointed needles. I'm kind of getting the hang of knitting with them. Because like I know what to do and stuff like that. I know where to end, and then I know how to switch like needles if I really need to and stuff. And it's really interesting, so I know how to switch to each needle. The only downfall is like they kind of get in the way and stuff, which is why I never use them too much unless I really need to. Like if I'm decreasing and it's too tight for my circular needles, I will switch to double pointed needles so I'm more comfortable. But if I'm knitting something really small, I just use the double pointed needles because I just feel super comfortable using double pointed needles for something really small, as opposed to the magic loop method where you have to like bend the cord to your circular needles, which I would never do because it makes me super uncomfortable. So basically I will just like knit with double pointed needles. I won't knit with double pointed needles unless I really need to. Okay, so those are my top 10 knitting methods that I never use. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you have not already. I post Monday through Saturday, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye!